Halo is one of the best video games ever made. It was so popular and revolutionary that virtually every modern game mechanic actually started with Halo. Things so common that they seem intuitive or obvious, when at the time they were both new and mind-blowing. Regenerating health, Halo. AI companions, Halo. Vehicles, cinematic music, good writing. It all started with Halo. Nowadays, the game is graphically comedic, and today, 24 years later, the game now sits in a museum of gaming history with its 40 awards sitting around it. So today we're going to commit some burglary and take this game out so I can play it and ruin everything about it. Our story begins with a giant hula hoop floating in the colorful void of space with a spaceship steadily flying towards it, and after a solid 3 seconds of running smoothly, the game crashed because a modern Xbox isn't advanced enough to run a 24-year-old game. Booting up the game again and doing everything exactly the same results with the cutscene working and moving on to introduce important characters such as Captain Minecraft Cleric, Siri, Black Man, Gordon Freeman, and Bill Nye. Then we shift focus to the protagonist and main character of the entire franchise, John Halo. After waking up in a refrigerator, we find that we cannot get out because unfortunately Mom was telling the truth about these things not opening from the inside. Thankfully, Bill Nye is nearby and helps get us out while Gordon Freeman gets blown up behind him because the ending of Half-Life 3 required he go out with a bang. With one of the most important characters of this franchise tragically gone, Bill Nye begins leading us to safety because clearly the writers were willing to sacrifice as many people as possible, regardless of their importance to the story. Bill Nye leads us through the halls valiantly, blasting his banger of a theme song the whole time to give everyone nearby a new sense of strength and determination and rally everyone together, but unfortunately he finds a roaring fire and finds the need to teach some kids the laws of thermodynamics by example. With another highly important hero gone, we continue through the ship and reach the cockpit where we are greeted by Captain Minecraft Cleric. Why is he named that? Because of the outfit that nobody else has ever worn except for him, the OG Minecraft Cleric, and this bowl of mashed potatoes from Halo 2. Captain Minecraft Cleric has a conversation about life, death, and the meaning of the universe before introducing us to Siri, who he thinks is his personal sex bot, so he thinks it's a great gesture to place her under our care. Plugging the hard drive into our suit, we find a collection of porn with a quantity that rivals only the average group chat composed of all teenagers. We delete the file out of shock and fear of what High Command will do when they see that in our search history, while the captain isn't in the process of giving us his weapon. And after seeing us do this and being the spiteful villager he is, he removes the ammo to leave us defenseless, but thankfully, we pickpocket some off a co-worker as we're walking away. As we begin our escape from the ship, we inform some children that access to the bridge is for employees only, and they'll have to leave. Then we loot an AR off a body to get a +1 bonus to our war crimes committed stat, and using the weapon, we give a giant lizard the American school experience as we make our way through a completely normal lunchroom that gave me several flashbacks to the intense war zone that was the food fights of 3rd grade. Continuing along our unmerry way, we watch several more highly important to the plot characters getting exploded into greater than 1 pieces by more giant lizards. Stealing weapons, ammo, and glowing Rubik's Cubes from the dead bodies of both friends and foe, we climb a completely normal school stairwell and find ourselves stuck at a dead end. Rather than go around, we climb into some vents to continue our directionless escape from the ship, despite the fact that we are still in space and escaping would put us out inside of space. And according to literally all of science, space hurts for this extensive list of reasons. While inside the vents, we are treated to some creepy music that should earn these 3 seconds of gameplay the Best Horror Game of the Year award. And after exiting the vents into a crowd of children, they start screaming about us venting, and one of them utters the word Amogus. This singular word fills us with a primal, uncontrollable rage as the Gen Alpha-hating John Halo shoots the entire crowd of children. Then we reach an escape pod as the ship begins to fall apart around us and find an ally of ours trying to take a nap, so we interrupt him by tossing him inside with us. Then the pilot takes off and we descend down onto the ring. Unfortunately, the escape pod is designed like anything else made in China and can only do the bare minimum of what it was designed to do. Which is why our presence, and thus our half-ton of weight, break the ship, resulting in a slightly harder than desired landing. After a short 12-hour nap, we wake up to Siri spamming "Are you alright?" at max volume. Muting her faster than a soundboard spammer on Discord, we climb out of the wreckage and overcome some enemies through the power of game sense. Continuing forward through the environment, we examine the many natural features around us like trees, grass, boulders, giant metal buildings shooting plasma at the sky, and rivers, activating Mantis Shrimp Vision mode to appreciate the design in full. Then we find some allies of ours fighting an enemy group of children and giant lizards that must have followed us down from the ship, so we help out. Upon defeating the enemies, we have a short conversation with the 2 other main protagonists of this franchise, Black Man and Useless Marine 1.exe. Before being swarmed by more children than police officers when they enter my basement, several more giant lizards, and some others, cosplaying as both raptors from Jurassic Park and Captain America. Defeating the children requires you click to shoot. Defeating the lizards requires the use of every single bullet you have in your assault rifle, but defeating the indecisive cosplayers requires a precise strategy of aim for hand, miss again, aim for shield, hit his hand by accident on purpose, aim for head, miss again, have an aneurysm. We watch our allies die around us despite their lots of importance to the plot, and after watching Nondescript Soldier 10 fall to our enemies, we decide to get the fuck out of there because clearly the writers are killing off characters based on coin flips and don't care how important someone is to the plot. Driving away in a stolen car, carrying the only other survivor of that show, we drive into yet another completely natural formation of this environment, but after several seconds of escaping, we realize that this noble steed is both not a steed and the opposite of noble, because despite this thing's car-like appearance, it handles like a garbage truck on a skating rink with an F1 driver up front absolutely flooring it. I've seen drunk drivers move with grace compared to this thing in these tunnels, because when this thing's in level 4, I can drive better than Ryan Gosling from that one movie Cars or whatever it's called, but the moment this thing is in these tunnels, I mix up the clutch and the brake. Eventually, we reach a large open room filled with children, so we decide to teach them the definition of vehicular manslaughter, by example of course. And after a DUI, one dead police officer, and dozens of third-degree murder charges, we reach a glowy light thing brighter than the LGBT lights on my uncle's keyboard. A short glance gives us the impression that it controls machinery we don't have the qualifications to operate, so we immediately start pressing random buttons on it, only to realize that it's a parking meter that overcharges the hell out of us, because even on a giant hula hoop ring world 10 light years from Earth, inflation is still a bitch. Upon stealing the lack of money directly from our bank account, the parking meter opens the way forwards and we hop into our car to continue driving through the god-awful tunnels. Driving up through the tunnels, we find an exit and regain the ability to drive, finally. Reaching the next area series marked on the GPS in mere seconds, and upon arriving, we find another group of enemies that all focused on me faster than a North Korean missile. Getting swarmed by more children than a Minecraft YouTuber at a meet and greet, plus all of their pet Komodo dragons because they're Australian, we get a religious experience that introduces us to the concept of life and sanity, because don't worry, we're losing both. Eventually, we decide to spec into some kind of dark magic called intelligence that claims to let us solve every problem we encounter, and with its guidance, we pull a run forced run, except we get backshot to death by several plasma bolts because apparently John Halo, the super cyborg, doesn't know how to run faster than a disabled kid. On our next attempt, we get a few more kills before successfully escaping to a natural cave system, where we find some allies trying to hide out, and with their help, we manage to fend off the group of enemy cosplayers who followed us in. Using our militaristic knowledge, we fight our way back out, where a lizard immediately targets us faster than a pit bull when they see a busy kindergarten playground. We fight off the horde of children and use our immense militaristic knowledge to make some balanced sacrifices that achieve a 90% casualty victory. Then we get one of the survivors to call in some air support to pick us up because I would rather die than meet God 87 more times searching for other survivors. After a several-hour flight, we reach a rocky, mountainous area with a giant enemy spaceship floating nearby that we have to infiltrate so we can rescue Captain Minecraft Cleric from the prison inside. Climbing out of the plane, we use stealth to overcome our enemies, and silently use a 50 BMG to deal with them. Then we hop down and fight the remaining children before moving forwards. And in the next area, we find a Sith holocron that can grant us any superpower we desire. So, of course, we choose invisibility because I like a little resistance, and after acquiring this gift, we immediately put it to the test. In the next area, we backshot 5 children, runts, and a giant lizard, which immediately alerts the lizard police who come down an elevator as our now obviously temporary superpowers fade away. Enraged and vengeance-seeking, we attack the lizard police and fight off a few waves of them before our allies arrive to come with us as we rescue the captain. But before we can do that, 2 bouncers float down to stop us from entering the ship. They prove a difficult fight, but they have a weakness to backshots, which instantly kills them. How did we discover this weakness? Anyway, floating up into the ship, we are immediately surrounded by children and cosplayers, but at this point, they're just light work. Unfortunately, we also encounter some kinky lizards that make use of invisibility in a similar fashion to ourselves, and through this power, they send us to meet God with same-day shipping. Eventually, we overcome the many enemies, both normal and kinky, and after the ordeal, we're finally allowed to progress. The journey through the ship takes us through an absolute maze of tunnels and leads us to several identical hangars before taking us to an insane gaming setup. Unfortunately, the password is quite powerful and we are not allowed access, so we continue with the mission and rescue Captain Minecraft Cleric. Now out of his cell, he gives us the most motivational speech in the entire franchise. What the f*** is he saying?
Translating audio.
Oh.
One moment.
Sorry, she activated by accident again.
I'm sorry, I couldn't translate that.
Turn off.
Do you think you could get me turned on?
Deactivate.
Translating audio.
No, I don't want.
What language would you like me to translate to?
Oh my Leaving the room, we fight more kinky lizards and reach the hangar where we find a glowing white control panel. Spamming every button on it until one eventually works, we unlock the doors to an enemy ship and climb inside with the captain and our remaining allies. Once inside, the captain insists that he pilot it, and after crashing into the wall, Z.L.E.R takes control with her GPS and flies us out safely. After regrouping with some allies, the captain explains a plan of his while we fly out to a beach so we can get a relaxing break from the conflict, building sandcastles and playing in the waves. Unfortunately though, this beach is from this hula hoop's equivalent to Australia and is absolutely covered in giant lizards, and lots of children on vacation too. Rather than give some children the Normandy experience to get this beach to ourselves, we run the other way because Private Ryan doesn't need us. He can take care of himself, he doesn't need saving. Through the power of a GPS, we get incredibly lost, and after blindly exploring, we reach our destination, the school zone. Because if you're willing to drive a really destroyed car, look no further than your local school zone. Taking the car, we channel the power of the many drivers from cars, and swerve like a madman as we drive through the front doors of a building. Despite the fact that these halls are tighter than my school schedule, it's still easier to drive through than the god-awful tunnels from earlier. Flooring it as we approach a closing door, we make a sharp turn and Mission Impossible this shit to game sense past the first 90% of this level. Then we reach a platform hanging above a far drop and decide to become the epitome of an emo kid, all the way down to the jump. Our lack of a skill issue lets us survive the fall unscathed, and after another drop that a lesser man would certainly die from, we find a very detailed map of the hula hoop that Z.L.E.R copies and sends to Captain Minecraft Claire while we fight our way back up to the door. Z.L.E.R translates that the captain has decided to fly to a swamp where Yoda supposedly is hiding out, while we fight through some kinky lizards before reaching a plane some kind soul left for us. Z.L.E.R finds something on the map named Important Computer with no further description because the map was made by children, and we begin flying towards it. Following the GPS, it tells us to fly straight down because the ground will open up beneath us, but we end up smashing into the ground and destroying the jet only 30 minutes into our flight. As we climb out of the wreckage, the ground finally opens up beneath us and drops us onto a platform that we must continue from. Now stuck on foot, we're immediately spotted by a group of children that we have a fun game of dodgeball with before walking outside through the only exit. Back outside, we're treated to the beautiful scenery of a plane crashing down from the sky after missing the towers, so we go to an elevator on the other side of the bridge that leads us directly to the crash site. There we find the higher budget equivalent to box cutters and decide to do some hijacking of our own. Stealing a car, we drive across a couple miles of pedestrians in a few seconds because so long as children tread upon this soil, I shall eternally floor the gas and never use something as disgusting as a turn signal in all my life. And unlike others, I am one of the few on earth that's actually bound to my promise, for I am too introverted to be a politician and too stupid to become a lawyer. After the 1000th drunk driving accident of the day, we find a tank that's been cursed by the god of skill issues, so no matter how straight you line up your shot, it will still shoot gay and miss whatever you're aiming at. Rather than use this absolutely dogshit vehicle, we continue in our car to another area where we're instructed to drive through some... Oh no. Rather than power through the absolute ordeal that is to follow, we return to the tank and climb in. Now moving at the same speed at which an infant crawls, we drive down into the tunnels, and after several hours of slowly inching forward at the same speed as that one snail from SpongeBob, Turbo, or whatever his name is, then we get back outside. There, we fight an enemy tank, clearly operated by the sweatiest players of any video game, War Thunder players, but we manage to defeat them. Eventually getting past them, we drive down a hill like an absolute champ, and continue to a giant combat area where the only way out is in the wall. Once inside the wall of the canyon, we navigate some more copy-paste hallways and reach a natural bridge with a strange kind of giant bird perched there. Using the bird, we fly away to a giant metal pyramid-shaped structure that we fight our way to the top of before opening the front door and waltzing in. After a few minutes of walking and opening automatic doors using buttons reserved exclusively for disabled people, we reach the important computer room. Its importance is obvious based on how graphically advanced the picture of the hula hoop is compared to the one earlier made by children. In fact, the hologram is so advanced that my Xbox couldn't handle its beauty and crashed my game. After looking at the image, Z.L.E.R insists we plug her into the important computer, which reconnects her Wi-Fi, and suddenly she gets 100 undelivered messages from the captain. Reading through a couple shocks her to her core, and she insists that there's no time to explain and sends us to go wait outside for an hour for air support to pick us up and fly us a couple hundred miles. After a short 22-hour flight without any GPS or navigation to speak of, we arrive at our destination, the swamp. Here, we don't see many enemies, or anything much at all, because the entire area is shrouded by a fog denser than the bricks I shot while playing this level. And coupled with the lack of things we're seeing are several shadowy figures replacing them. Making our way past a potential 9/11 joke and a daycare field trip gone wrong, we reach a bunch of children running away from something they'll laugh at in a couple years, like that one clown Penny Lane. Walking into the room that kindergartners fear, we find an elevator that we take down into the depths of the facility. And upon reaching the bottom floor, we realize this is just a normal school. I mean, just look at the place. The resemblance is uncanny. Normal children, cosplayers, mentally unstable teens. It's the most normal high school I've ever seen. We've even got some graffiti art that got classified as vandalism, and the artist himself lying unconscious, no doubt due to a teacher's punishment. Blue goo all over the bathroom walls that smells slightly bleachy, absolutely destroyed doors that'll never get fixed, and even the signature passed out group of stoners. Okay, maybe not that last one. Eventually, we come across a locked door of a gender-neutral bathroom that summons the strange sounds of a couple having a wonderful time. And after breaking in to continue our search for the captain, we realize that there are some things people are just not supposed to see. The sight scars us for the remainder of our life, and during those 30 seconds, we develop a wonderful new ability called schizophrenia. It's a simple game mechanic where if you double tap A, you can see things previously unseeable, like these new imaginary friends that just really want to give us a hug. Just like the lizards and cosplayers, these enemies come in different types, with a lot of difference between how they all work. I mean, these enemies can plant eggs in your chest to give you a charged creeper experience, miss more shots than a game journalist, or ruin your life as much as college did. After fighting through the schizo demons and game sensing a few times, we reach an elevator and return to the surface, where we find a bunch of allies who can also see the schizo demons. Not because they're real, but it's probably because they acquired the same passive ability when they were exploring down there. As we run through the swamp fighting our own imagination, they explain that the captain was taken by his own schizo demons and carried away for unknown purposes. We make a noble last stand against our schizo demons while our allies get skill issued all around us, and after a few minutes of nearly dying, we get teleported to a very precarious platform about 100 feet up. There, we are greeted by a British robot that gives us two options: work with him or not.
You've proved yourself a decisive man, so I don't expect you'll have any trouble deciding what to do.
What?
If you're interested, just step into the portal, and I will take that as a yes.
I'm sorry, who are you?
Otherwise,
what are...
well, I can offer you a battle you have no chance of winning.
I know this. I know what this is from. It's
It's time to choose.
Oh shit, yeah, I'll come with you. Splendid. Wait, what were you imitating? After several seconds in the realm of non-corporeal beings and acid trips, we rematerialize inside a strange facility with the British robot beside us, who immediately flies away before we can ask any questions. Examining the dark area around us gives us the impression that we're deep underground in some kind of secret facility, but before we can run to ask R2, the schizo demons surround us. We can't call for help because Blue Balls without the S is out of earshot, so we begin our chase after him while our schizo demons attack from all around. Shooting wildly at our imaginary enemies, we run through the empty facility and reach an elevator that takes us up to the second floor, where it gets even worse somehow. After continuing on our chase for a few minutes, we get the number one reason why that is not simply a statement or a warning, but rather it is the coldest, hardest fact ever. There is no avoidance, there is no compromise, there is no game sense. The only things that are left are pain and rocket flood, but don't worry, those two go hand in hand. As if this mission wasn't bad enough, you've also got to remember that this isn't just repetitive wave defense, it's also an escort mission, and not because we're being led by the she was a fairy robot, it's because rocket flood are escorting me to a migraine. One trip to hell and not quite back gets us to another elevator, where we hear our own thoughts shouted back at us. Unlike the previous floor, this place isn't quite as peaceful and actually proves a little challenging at times. God, this level sucks. Fighting these schizophrenic demons beyond our comprehension continues for 2 more floors before we eventually get past a 90-second holdout section and reach the final elevator that takes us all the way back down to the first floor to undo all of our prior work. Here, Tinkerbell explains that the entire facility is designed to stop someone from reaching this green, glowing dildo thing, and that only this object can stop the mass schizophrenia that everyone's experiencing. As John Halo takes the object, it is immediately stolen by Wall-E the floating pain in the ass, before he teleports both of them to the important computer place. Upon reaching the important computer place, John Halo takes the object back and plugs it into a USB port as he's instructed by the Britbot. Then Siri flashbangs Hal the floating sex offender and explains everything that nobody ever asked about. She reveals that nobody has schizophrenia because the demons are real creatures trying to kill everyone, and that the hula hoop was made by an ancient race known as boomer aliens, who hoped to destroy the schizo demons by destroying everyone that could see them. With this exposition scene at a close, 3PO confirms that it's true and activates an army of toy drones because he is unable to fight by himself. With enemies closing in from all around and little time left, Siri downloads the contents of the green object before John Halo takes her back from the important computer. The escape begins with us backed against a wall with 4 drones in front of us, but they're easy to defeat because, like almost everything else, they've got a Made in China stamp on their back. We fight our way outside the pyramid structure, and once outside, we find a bunch of lizards and cosplayers waiting to ambush us. Rushing past them, we jump off the side of the building in a cool slide that speedily takes us down to the ground in the safest manner possible. Then we run to another bird and use it to fly away. As we soar, not quite above the clouds, Siri does something useful, for once, and explains that the important computer could still potentially be activated, but taking down the Wi-Fi would ensure failure, so we begin a search for the router. Up at the top of the canyon wall, hundreds of feet above the ground, we find a platform with a door in the rock wall that just so happens to be the only entrance to the router room, and inside protecting it are several more drones. Thankfully, we have the best sniper rifle in the game, and after dispensing an immense amount of justice into our foes, we destroy the router. Great connection, fast speed, long range. It's something that people like me can only dream of, so it pains us to destroy such a beautiful creation, and apparently also pained my router because that little shit deactivated my happiness and the footage disappeared. After destroying the router, Floater the British Robocop attacks us by teleporting us to the most dangerous place he can think of. A workplace with many OSHA violations. Here we can see wild animals roaming through supposedly hygienic areas, mentally unstable individuals, child workers, and spilled hallucinogenic chemicals filling the place with fumes that have given all individuals the idea that demons are everywhere. Making our way up through the place, we reach a godlike gaming setup with a pile of people slightly green from nausea, coalescing into something more powerful than all of them individually. In the center of this pile, we find Captain Minecraft Cleric, who we punch in the face for convincing everyone that the demons were mere hallucinations, but upon hitting him, he barfs up a piece of metal. Upon closer inspection, we realize it's the keys to the giant ship we came in on, and he explains that he swallowed it so he could shit it out later and use it to pick the lock of his cell before we ended up rescuing him earlier. Siri explains that we can destroy the entire hula hoop by using the captain's keys to activate the broken ship, and because it's an electric model, the slightly scratched up engine will instantly explode. Distracted by the potential to save everyone in the galaxy, we forget about the captain and leave him to wallow in his sickness. Running back through the workplace, we reach a room filled with ships and realize this is the same place we saved the captain from before. But rather than go back to get him so he can fly the ship for us and let him struggle his way out of the hangar, we jump down to another bird, except this one runs off an electric motor, so it's invincible. Using the bird's solar panel enchantment to our advantage, we fly around the hangar shooting enemies before flying out in search of the ship. After reaching the Arrakis section of this, after reaching the desert part of this ring with no water to speak of, we navigate this recreation of Africa before eventually finding the ship crashed in the dunes. Alright, just watch this. Kobe. After crashing the ship, the worst part of this journey begins when we have to do the truly difficult task of getting out and using our legs. Entering the ship through a random open door on the side, we make our way through, now with monsters filling the entire place, but we eventually reach the bridge. Plugging in the key, the engine fails to turn over several times before failing to start at all with no logical explanation until we get a FaceTime from knockoff Wheatley. Siri mutes the British T-800 before he can continue, and explains that even something as simple as overheating the engine to blow it up is out of the question, now that starting it is impossible. With few options remaining, John Halo uses the life lessons taught by Star Wars that everything blows up and the galaxy is saved just by shooting something in the right spot. Then a group of drones descend into the room in an attack, but do you really think they pose any threat to us? Taking them down, we fight our way through the halls of the ship, facing drones made in China, the children who made the drones, a bunch of average Australian pets, small security guards who think they're just as skilled as cops, horrors beyond my comprehension, failed Resident Evil enemies, and even some knockoff creepers. Thankfully, they're all distracted by each other in a giant brawl, so we can rush past them without much difficulty. Upon reaching the engine room, we climb up to a precarious platform using professional parkour moves, such as crouch jumping and grenade jumps. There we spam grenades at some vents connected to the engine until eventually we destroy enough to trigger a reaction that leaves all nearby children screaming about sabotage and an imposter, which once again triggers us the funny way. With no way to stop it, everyone's favorite LED decides to accept defeat with this one and disappears, while we run to the hangar where we will pray for an undamaged plane. Running to the elevator, we are ambushed by a group of enemies that got stuck in there before the ship even crashed, and fighting through them, we reach a collection of cars that rivals Tony Stark's, and begin our ride to escape. But before the end, we stop at a bridge where Siri says that air support has been detected or something, and upon stopping, we see a plane flying into view, but as it approaches, we hear the familiar voice of a British robot screaming through the speakers.
You should destroy my ring. I shall kill you to death.
We climb back into the car and resume our escape, but after a few moments, we hear his voice come through the comms one final time.
May your elves be many, and your bitches few.
With the incompetent and incapable enemy out of the way for good, we continue our drive. Not without issue though, because this raceway is second only to the tunnels of hell. Thankfully the Force is with us, unlike our driver's license, but nevertheless it allows us to swerve, flip, and crash our way towards the hangar. There we find a single remaining plane that isn't under maintenance, and after diving out of the car, we rush towards it. With the ship burning and collapsing around us, we run towards the open back door and enter the ship just before any monsters catch up. Climbing into the cockpit, we hop in the pilot seat and rise above the ground before activating the thrusters. And now, we know that we have a chance. We can survive this horrible experience. We can live a long and prosperous